Hey, Pixel here. Today I've got a quick review for Bridge Constructor Walking Dead. So if you've played the previous Bridge Constructor games, you're going to want to pause for a second because this one is a little bit different than the previous games in this series. This all boils down to the fact that the previous games were based on lots of zany action. Typically, you were driving a car over a bridge, you have to avoid hazards and cross large gaps. They're puzzles, sure, and they're all physics games, even this new one, but this one slows down the pace a little bit, slower than any of the other games that I've played. That's not to say that this particular game was ill-received by me. In fact, I had a lot of fun, but this game does play out more like a puzzle and strategy game and less like a big explosions and lots of zany fun game that the other Bridge Constructor games were. As the title of this game would insinuate, this is a Walking Dead game, but it's also a Bridge Constructor game. And that doesn't on its face really jive well together because Bridge Constructor games are generally car games and Walking Dead games are games based around the survivors in a zombie apocalypse. Well, here they have married the two together because you take control of the survivors, and much like a Lemmings game, you control the survivors by giving them actions to do at various points around the map. Now, this is still very physics driven. You will be controlling a number of physics-based traps, you will be telling your survivors to kill zombies in places, and at times you will need to build bridges so that their getaway cars can cross gaps and avoid zombies. For the most part, in each level, you'll find yourself mitigating three different elements. First, there's your survivors, and they'll have to be told which way to go if they're supposed to interact with computer terminals that are found throughout the level. Perhaps they'll have to use a weapon, or they'll have to use some sort of a distraction device, but that's the first one. Second, there are different traps that sometimes show up in the levels. A lot of times these are physics-based, where it's a big wheel that's going to roll over things, or something that's going to fall through gravity to crush zombies. You'll need to avoid that with your survivors, but you're also going to need to take advantage of those to clear the level. Third is levels that are not as much survivor-based, but they're caravan-based. Now, in these levels, they are car-based, but they are going to drive on their own, and you'll have to construct a bridge to get around certain objects without that bridge breaking. While these caravan sections aren't quite as exciting as some of the other Bridge Constructor games, because this game keeps the gameplay style overall pretty veritable, it still makes sense to have these caravan bits, and they still are fun on their own. If the entire game was these caravan bits, this would not be a very exciting game, but because they add in those elements with the survivors and the physics-based traps, when you mesh it all together, it's overall a pretty fun game, and I found that it captured my attention for quite a long time. I did have a couple criticisms about this game, and the first has to do with the depth of this game. Now, not with the gameplay depth overall, but mostly with the modes that are available in the game, because there's only one. At least when you start the game, there is only the story mode, and I've played through a large chunk of that story. I'm not sure exactly how much there is left, but I can say that there's no make your own level here. There's no challenge modes, at least until you beat the game there isn't, and that's a little bit disappointing. As it is, the existing mode is very entertaining and did capture my attention, so that's good, but it does feel like something else needs to be brought to the table and something needs to be added so that players, once the game has been completed, has something else to do. My second issue with this game is just the graphics overall, and I think this kind of pertains to the graphics and the textures and the character models. Overall, I found it to be really ho-hum. To some extent, this game does deserve a pass. This is an indie title that's meant to be low budget. This is not a AAA game, and for that reason, I think we need to let it slide a little bit. But at the same time, I did find that some of the textures are just so blurred out, and some of the models just looked so off that, to me, it was a little bit of a distraction for this particular game. I think this game, more than other Bridge Constructor games, had that effect simply because you're zooming in on things a lot more here, trying to tell a story about these survivors, where in the other games you didn't zoom in quite as much. So having lower res textures and lower poly objects really didn't affect the game. Here it does a little bit, and I think if you can see the game yourself and give it a pass, then it deserves that pass. For me, it was a little bit distracting, but it was still an okay experience visually. Finally, I think I need to say a few things about the story of this game, and that's mostly because I think people coming from the Walking Dead angle may be expecting more of a story. Walking Dead has become synonymous with great stories. There was the Telltale series, there is the show, there is the graphic novel. Everything that Walking Dead seems to touch seems to have these great, epic stories. That's not the case here. In fact, this one probably is more like a bridge constructor game when it comes to a story, in saying that it's not really present at all. There is a number of cutscenes with text, but the characters themselves don't ever actually jump out and feel like they are living, breathing characters that you find in the real world, and none of the events that are going on inside their world seem to grab much attention at any time. For that reason, when you look at the story of this game, if you look at it from the perspective of Walking Dead, you're going to be highly disappointed. But if you look at it from the perspective of Bridge Constructor, you might just be happy that there's something to get you from one level to the next that's not just a loading screen. So who is this game for, and is it worth it? Well, for anybody that's played a Bridge Constructor game and enjoyed it, you are very likely to enjoy this game as well. If you enjoy strategy games or puzzle games or building games, physics games, this all fits under that umbrella, and this is a very good version of any of those genres. Yes, the game does have some drawbacks, and I'm going to have criticisms about any game, but this one does what it sets out to do fairly well. This game is available on every single platform that I can think of off the top of my head. It's available on Switch and Xbox and PS4 for $15. It's available on Epic and Steam for $10. You can get this thing on iOS and Android as well for $2. So obviously, best bang for your buck is to pick this up on your smart device, your tablet, or your phone. You're going to get it for $2. It's an amazing deal at $2. If you want to pick this up on your PC, it's also a very good deal. I think $9 is definitely, I guess it's $10, is definitely worth the price for the number of hours that you get out of this, and the fact that it is a pretty good puzzle strategy game. At $15 for the console versions, I'm going to say that's a little bit pricey, and you might want to hold off for just a little while. See if you can get a sale on that version, because I think that 15 might be asking just a little bit much. Of course, that's your decision, not me. You know your money better than I do. So if you like this game, you want to buy in at $15 because that's the console that you have, go right ahead. If you liked this video, make sure you like this video. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, take a look at some of my other reviews. And if you like those, consider subscribing. Thanks for hanging out with me. And until next time, this has been Pixel.